Hey guys, Aubrey at the Briary here, and on today's episode of Tobacconist Field Guide, we're going to be talking about the different components for blending tobaccos. Today we'll cover mainly the bases and then some of the condiment components. We're not going to get into some of the more difficult to find ones like Nicotina rusticana or anything like that. We're just mainly going to be talking about the major food groups here. And without any more talking, we're going to get straight into it. The first one I want to talk about is my personal favorite base, and this is Virginia's. Virginias come in 3 different varieties. There's some more, but we're just going to get into the 3 main ones. The first one I want to talk about is Golden Virginias, and those are the ones that you're going to see most often. They have a yellowy-like color, and they typically have a citrusy and grassy-like taste, right? These come from a process that's called flue curing, and they kind of heat the tobacco to make it taste the way that it does. The next one that we have is the mature brown, and that one is a little bit sweeter. You're going to notice less grassy notes, but you're still going to get some of that citrus taste, but a more natural sweetness. And these are typically used for aromatic blends. Your typical, Yorkshire, 1Q, things like that. And then after that, we have my favorite base, which is Red Virginia. And those you see in crumble cake and stuff like that, and they have a more bready and molasses-like taste. And you want to have those in your straight Virginia blends. They're just way more complex and better tasting. The next one that we have right here is the Burley, and that's the second most common. Burleys come in 2 different varieties. You can get them from Kentucky and also from Tennessee. The Kentucky variant tends to have a more cocoa-like taste, and the Tennessee is more of a nutty and almondy-like taste. You can also, you'll see these fire cured occasionally, which gives it a much more robust taste, and they're typically used in your old codger style blends like Carter Hall and things like that, because they're very easy to smoke. You can smoke them all day. They have a little bit higher nicotine content, but not so much that it's going to bother you throughout the day. And they're also used for aromatics because that kind of nutty taste really binds to flavorings. The next one that we're going to talk about can be used as a base or a condiment, and that one's Cavendish. And Cavendish in and of itself isn't necessarily its own tobacco, it's more of a process. And what that process is they use heat and pressure to kind of produce this rich dark color, and what that does is it squeezes the flavor out and gives it an easy smoothness. This lack of flavor is good for aromatics, and you'll see them in, mainly Cavendish-based blends like BCA or Sutliff's Hot Chocolate. But it also shines in non-aromatic blends because it smooths out the rough edges of natural tobacco to give it a nice, easy smoking ability. Cavendish is one of my favorite when you use it as a component, a condiment as opposed to a base, simply because it helps non-aromatics. Now in our next little 3 we see here, these are going to be our condiment tobaccos. You don't want to use more than 15 or 20%, and the main 3 condiments that people typically think of are Latakia, Oriental and Turkish, and Perique. So we'll start out talking about Latakia because Latakia is the one that you see the most of. There's tons of English blends, right? And Latakia is made by burning spruces and other shrubs under the tobacco while it's curing to bind that smokiness in to give it a cedary, barbecue-y like taste. Most people think of it as a very robust flavor. The next one that we're going to talk about are the Oriental and Turkish, and those are typically used in conjunction with Latakia to make Balkan blends. They have this musky and sour-like taste, and they add some complexity to the Latakia. You're not going to see much more than 10% of this in a blend. It's just very overpowering, and sometimes you'll see it without Latakia, like in Dunhill's Standard Mixture, which isn't for sale anymore, and it binds with the Virginias. Our last one is my favorite condiment tobacco, and that one's Perique. It's made in Louisiana, and it's also, like Cavendish, more of a process, and that process is a fermentation. And what that does is it gives the tobacco, like everything in Louisiana, a very spicy cayenne-like taste. It's also much higher in nicotine content, and they'll typically use it in Red Virginia blends to make that spiciness shine with the sweetness of Virginia. Those will be all of the components, and we look forward to you trying out some of these on your own in different blends. You guys have a great one, and we'll see you next time.